He had a stroke where I knew it wasn't a bad stroke, but it was enough that I knew something was wrong. And so we went to the hospital there, and he was in the hospital for 3 weeks while they tried to figure out what was taking place. And then they decided that he could have had a very bad stroke.
He called me that morning and he said, "I'm not feeling very good and we're just about out of milk." He said, "Do you think you could get me some milk?" And I said, "Well, I'm not going to the store or any place till I take your blood pressure." And it was normal, of all things. And for some reason, I looked at my watch, and it only took me 10 minutes to go and get the milk and come back. And I called out the minute I opened the kitchen door, and he did not reply. So I rushed and ran just through things and ran to the bedroom, and he was already on the floor and beginning to be blue and cold.
The worst time of my life was when my doctor, his doctor at the hospital, after they had given tests after that last stroke, told me, "Mildred, my heart is broken when I have to tell you that he will never be able to be at home again." And that was awful to hear. But he said he has dementia. Besides that, the stroke, he had to be in a wheelchair. I could not manage him here at home. So we lived with that for a year and a day. He was in the health center here.
He asked me one day if I was okay. And I said, "Yeah, I'm fine," thinking it was, "Are you okay at the moment?" And he was gone in another week. I think he just waited to make sure that everything was fine. And that's sort of the way he was.
So I took a tape recorder with some music, and I sat by his bedside and played the music so he could hear it. And they kept telling me he doesn't know anything, but it at least was something that I felt comfortable with. And he passed away very easily then in the hospital.
I didn't know whether he really knew who I was. And I said, "Carlisle, you do know who I am." And he said, "You're the girl of my dreams." What better gift can you give than that? Yeah.
I couldn't write a poem or a verse that's half so sweet as that you sent my darling. It simply can't be beat, a verse that's half so sweet as that you sent my darling. You see, it so expresses my thoughts and feelings too, that other words are lacking. They simply would not.
Life goes on, life is good. And you just have to understand, and you don't dwell on it. And there are times yet. I did some things. At first, I got rid of things that were hurting too much. He had a desk that he sat at, and I knew that if I kept that lovely big desk, it was an executive desk, that I would see him there always, because he sat by the hour. So I sold it. I didn't like to eat alone at the place in the table, so I turned the table around another direction and put the radio there so I wouldn't have to look at an empty space. I tried to develop new interests. I went ahead with my life, and there are times that I'm lonely, of course, and I always will be. But I cannot say that you ever get over. There's always that empty spot. But that's the way it is. Yeah. On the other hand, I find that I have a life that I've never had before. Always, I lived with my family, of course. Then I was married, and you have somebody else to consider, and you have certain limitations as to what you can do without consulting each other. You know, I'm a quilter, and sometimes I turn my kitchen into a quilt shop, and I use my counters to cut, and I don't have to put my ironing board and my sewing machine away because I'm the only one here. The first one I did, I made for my son and his wife for Christmas. And the next day, my son called me and he said, "Mom, that is the warmest quilt I've ever slept under." And I said, "Well, you know why? It was made with love."
I think church work had always been a great portion of my life. And so you base your beliefs and your feelings on knowing that the Lord is there for you. And so I think that's a good portion of it. This has been 17 years now since my husband passed away. So I have created a life that probably enfolds my daughter and granddaughter and grandchildren more than anything else at this time. The young grandchildren are quite inspirational because, of course, you see them change every day. And since I get to see them quite frequently, it makes it very interesting for me to see the growth, the difference in their daily lives and what they care about and so forth. You see characteristics that you think, oh, that was like their dad or their grandfather did or something like this. And many times just a glance or something will remind you.
It was always very evident to me that they cared so deeply for each other. Just the way they would joke and laugh with each other and how they treated and respected each other. And it passed these things on down to my mom, which then showed in her marriage, which then gave me a good example of what a good, strong marriage is like. So.
We had talked over what would happen if either of us passed away. We each had said we'd like for the other to marry so that they would have companionship, and yet we each said we wouldn't want to.
I never dwelt on sad times. Things happen. If they happen for a reason, you deal with it and you close the door and move on. And that's the way Bob and I were. And it just seemed natural, I guess. I just knew whatever decision I made about my life and where it was going to take me, I would not be making that decision by myself, and somehow I always have known that it's what Bob and I would have done together. I think love is enjoying someone's company, trusting them, being able to talk to them, working as a team and not having it all one way. It never occurred to me that my life wouldn't always be with Bob. If I do something or think I'm going to do something that I don't think he would really approve of, and I'd have to work at making him think it's okay, then I still have that feeling. And it's sort of funny.
What would I do with Carlisle if he were here right now? Well, we love our home. And I can't think of any exotic place I'd want to go, but I have fond memories of him sitting in his wing chair, reading the newspaper or a book, and quietly back in the sunroom. And I think what I would do that would bring him as much pleasure as anything would be to bring him a warm cookie on a napkin. And I was thrilled every time I did this, and I did it innumerable times. But each time he was so gracious, and he acted like it was the biggest gift anybody could give. And he was always, he'd say, "Oh, well, thank you." And I can't think of anything that I would get any more pleasure out of than to give him a warm cookie.
And I certainly feel lonesome when you're not around. But it is a happy, beautiful lonesomeness, full of sweet memories and great anticipations. Wishing you sweet dreams to the sweetest of all, your own Norman.
I couldn't write a poem or a verse that's half so sweet as that you sent my darling. It simply can't be beat, a verse that's half so sweet as that you sent my darling. You see, it so expresses my thoughts and feelings too, that other words are lacking. They simply would not do, my thoughts and feelings too, that other